Hey, I'm Levi. Welcome to Imperfect Builds. Today I'm going to be giving you my do's and don'ts for finishing and printing 3D printed props. 3D printers aren't perfect and you can't expect them to be. They're far from it, and you're going to have issues and you're going to have problems. You're going to have print failures, you're going to have layer lines. It's just a part of the trade. There's a lot of work that goes into making these props look realistic, and they're never going to be perfect. That's partially the reason that you're here, is because you want to achieve perfection on your props. Because I know for a fact I spent hours on my first Mandalorian helmet and it came out nowhere near perfect, and that was the motivation to start my channel here for you guys. Let me give you an example on this Iron Man helmet here. Most of the time, people who are watching you or looking at your props aren't going to see the imperfections like you do. You are your worst critic, and you are going to be your worst critic when it comes to these props. As you can see on the front here, when it printed, the supports failed and it didn't get these corners in. So what I did was I sliced in Mesh Mixer, I cut this front part of the helmet, and then when I printed it, I cut these pieces off, got them as close as I could, and then I welded them to the face piece. This is something you can do for layer lines. So the first thing you can do to get rid of layer lines is use this. This is glazing and spot putty Bondo. This stuff works great, but it works even better with acetone. You're gonna take these two and you're gonna mix them to a 50-50 mix, relatively, and it's going to come out to like a watery mud. That way you can take a paintbrush and apply it to your helmet or whatever prop you're making, and it will quickly cover up those layer lines and dry within 15 to 20 minutes and be completely sandable. Once you have it sanded down, you can determine if you need to apply another layer or if it's good to go, and you can move on to the filler primer to fill in any remaining layer lines or imperfections in the print. Wet sanding is always going to be better with higher grit sandpaper. What I mean by that is, if you get up to a 600 grit sandpaper or that 1500 grit and you're getting that final finish look on your helmet, wet sanding is going to be crucial. First off, your paint is not going to clog up your sanding paper as easily because you're using the water is absorbing all that dust, so it's not allowing it to stick to your sandpaper and causing it to clog up and having to replace sandpaper more. The water is also going to allow you to keep that dust control down, and you're not going to have to be breathing in that stuff if you're working outside, let's say, and you're not wearing a respirator. It's going to keep that stuff from you breathing it in. So the water creates an extra smoothing layer, so it really helps to gloss over and take those steep sanding lines out. It's going to help you to really smooth things out. It's going to make your sandpaper move smoother over the helmet. It just helps to control that friction and that easy sliding when you're sanding things. It's going to give you that really smooth look to your helmet once you're finished wet sanding it and get that last coat put on. When you apply the graphite to your Mando helmet, it's going to make it look like metal, which is the look you're going for. The next thing I want to talk about is slicer settings. Make sure your settings in Cura are set right to what they need to be for your supports specifically. Because if you have too high of an infill density on your supports, they're going to be insanely tough to remove, and they're not going to be fun, and you have a possibility of actually cracking your entire helmet and causing a major print failure. Or another thing that can happen is that if they're not dense enough, they're going to fail on you like they did on the Iron Man helmet. And then you're going to have a ruined print from the very start, and hopefully it starts in the beginning of your print and not the end of your print. The biggest thing to saving time is going to be making sure your settings in Cura are right, or whatever slicer you're using, because that's realistically the most amount of time you have to idly sit and wait for your props to be printed. If you're 3D printing your props in pieces, don't get discouraged when they don't line up exactly the way you want them to, because they are going to be close, but when you glue things together, they tend to fold and bend easily. These aren't metal machined items, so you can't expect them to act and perform like metal and machined items. It's plastic. The best thing you can do is to take your time and use vice grips, the plastic vice grips, or use tape to tape your pieces together to get them as close as possible, and then to weld them instead of using super glue. Because the super glue, you're not gonna have to sit there and hold it into position and then possibly have it off alignment. And then once you have it off of alignment, you're gonna have to rip everything apart again and sand it down and re-glue it together. Welding your prints by far is the easiest method to keeping them strong and together. It is going to save you time and effort. If you don't know what I mean by welding, I have a video on it and I'm gonna link it right here above me. So you can go ahead and go watch that video and learn how you can weld your props together. That way they'll be stronger and you won't have to use super glue anymore. Next thing I wanna talk about is paint. Using primer and paint, and knowing the difference between how you should be painting your props. When you're using primer, I like to use the 2-in-1 filler primer. It's an automotive filler primer that really helps cover layer lines. This stuff you can lay on in thick coats. It can run, it's okay because you're gonna sand it. It will cover up your layer lines quickly, and you'll see it when you lay it on. It runs like water pretty much. So don't overdo it, but it's okay if it runs a little bit because you're gonna end up sanding it down anyways. The next thing, paint. This stuff is where it comes to being careful, to avoiding orange peel, to avoiding running, because you don't want to have to keep adding more and more layers on and keep sanding and sanding and sanding. Once you finish priming and once you've got it nice and smooth, you should be able to add light coats of paint. Let it dry, come back and add another light coat. Don't add too thick of a coat too quickly, or your paint's going to run, it's going to orange peel, and it's going to cause you a headache that you don't want to deal with. Last things I'm going to talk about is probably the most important part of this entire process, and it is to take your time. Don't rush the paint drying. Don't rush the sanding. Don't rush it. Enjoy what you're doing and have fun with it, because the more you rush things, the more you're going to get frustrated and cause more problems for yourself. You already waited the 2 days for the helmet to print, or all the pieces to print, depending on what you've printed. Take your time with it, enjoy it, have fun, and make it come out to how you want it to be. In reality, you're not a professional prop maker. 99% of us aren't. We're just doing this for fun and as a hobby. Enjoy yourself and your 3D printing. Don't make it a headache for yourself. Hey, if you guys stayed for the whole video, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I upload weekly. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. I'll see you guys next time.